All right. Well, I wanted to talk about a really, really sick movie I watched recently and a little rampage I had going on with sci-fi horror type, thought type movies. This movie was actually very, very good. It was called Infini from 2015, and it's added to a long list of movies I didn't even know fucking existed, but had to watch just because I came across a list that had it on. And I think that that's a big part of how we consume media nowadays is just by finding out about something that exists. We have a game or TV show that we've never heard about before and just discover it, and we easily have it at our fingertips today. And I gotta say, Infinity is a fantastical freaking movie. Now, the movie takes place in the future. They got teleportation technologies, and it's all very good with its special effects and setting. But I think what really distinguishes this movie is just the stellar acting that it has in it. Daniel McPherson is fantastic as his Whit Carmichael character, and he really is like super, super, super intense, and he just gives like a crazed performance of this just bizarre event that took place about them teleporting and there being this almost like alien life that kind of came about. Now, one of the reasons we watched this movie is because I am an absolute Event Horizon freak. I fucking love it. I've always loved it. And yes, this movie is very similar to Event Horizon, but it's also got a lot of differences as well. For starters, it has nothing to do with evil, devil, chaosness, and it's more along the lines of kind of evolution and, a being that takes over, humankind or life forms, and it is all just a complete and utter mind fuck. Of course, you could describe it as that way. And I just thought it was really good. Most people didn't even know existed. It's got terrible Rotten Tomatoes scores and IMDb scores, but I put it along the side of 8 out of 10 just simply because I am such a freak for sci-fi. I love sci-fi settings. If you give me a good futuristic setting, I'm gonna love it. And so maybe I'm a little bit biased towards it because of that fact. But yeah, I mean, it does the job well, and if you can watch it, you're guaranteed to get a little bit of a sci-fi intensity. So it's kind of a shame that it got such low scores, and I think that we're just so inundated now with media that these types of movies from fucking 10 years ago, people are just not going to care about anymore, move on to the next thing. But you really got to give it to the cast that gave a crazed performance, because there's some scenes that are seriously fucked up in this movie. For starters, I almost couldn't even tell that there were characters that were like quote unquote infected. They almost seemed like they were, normal, but you could kind of tell by their eyes that they were like, in quote unquote infected with this disease that often made them seem like they would attack each other out of just sheer rage, almost like some type of zombie virus. And it really made you realize that how can you trust people sometimes, especially when there's this weird alien virus going around. As a thorough Doom 3 enjoyer, I actually kind of liked the fact that this movie had a lot of similarities to the Doom movie and the game. You're going on this off-world, planet. Shit hits the fan. You got to survive in labs and corridors. There's a potential alien threat abound, and it's all very, very good stuff. And like, I mean, that's like the part of sometimes you just those types of movies to me are just so fantastic because if it looks good enough and the acting is good enough and it has a compelling enough story, I'm totally sold because I just really, really like that setting. And there's only so many of those movies out there, and you're only going to get so many of these types of adventures. And like I said, I just found this on a list, a random list somewhere. The movie only had a budget of $5 million, US dollars, which is crazy to think that someone just slapped $5 million together and created all these crazy sets. And yeah, there's CGI used, of course, but you can make a compelling looking futuristic world on just $5 million. It's pretty interesting that these types of worlds can be built with such a little amount of money. And I think that it's pretty admirable that they were able to create a pretty convincing world like this with just 5 mil. Yeah, it's certainly not the best movie ever. Like I said, I was bordering a 7 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10. As a sci-fi lover, I definitely give an 8 out of 10. It's good enough. It does the trick. It fulfills what it needs to fulfill. But as as a hardened movie critic, I would say it falls more along the lines of 7 out of 10, just simply for the fact that it's kind of, a little bit weird. It's hard to follow at parts. You don't know if anybody's who's infected or what even the fuck happens at the end of the movie. So I mean, and there's lots of gory, brutal scenes, including self deletion, that are just sickening. And something. I mean, if you're looking for that in a movie, you got it here. Daniel McPherson truly puts on an incredible role here. He is just absolutely insane. The burning fire in his eyes is captivating, and his will to survive is pretty admirable in the way he portrays himself. So, I mean, it is a very, 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 crying shame that the movie got so much hate. Very likely didn't do very good. But I mean, it's the biggest risk you could ever take making a sci-fi movie, because there are such great examples like Event Horizon, Aliens, Aliens 2, that just completely, like, how can you ever top that? And a lot of people just aren't really into sci-fi and scary stuff, so you've lost a huge portion of your audience there. But as a person who just loves fucking Event Horizon, loves, space future tech, that's my major jam. It's a good movie for that aspect, and I wouldn't be dissuaded by the reviews online, because oftentimes movies that get suboptimal reviews can become amazing. I mean, look at Dread. 2012 was that Dread? Yeah, Dread, just the best movie ever made, and it didn't do well with critics, and it didn't do well with the box office. But you gotta view each movie for yourself and kind of determine what you determine from it. So yeah, Infinity, if you're looking for a crazy sci-fi adventure romp, you certainly can't go wrong here. And it's a movie that is probably, lost to the time nowadays, which is such a crying shame, because Daniel McPherson did just a fucking jaw-droppingly wicked movie, and it deserves an Oscar for how he was. But these are the types of movies that never come up in the Oscar things, because it's an obscure movie. They don't have the money to pay off the fucking goddamn Oscar department. And, they're never going to even consider this movie as any type of art. But it's certainly not the best movie ever, but it's so interesting that you just have to watch it. And it's got some extremely brutal scenes in it. And Infinity, you know what? It On a good day, it's an 8 out of 10 movie that's worth watching and will fulfill all your sci-fi desires.